Thanks for tuning in. If you've landed on this page, I assume based on the title, you're interested in finding out how to install the Blue Prism Learning Edition. So that's exactly what I'll be doing today. And we'll be doing this in version 6.7 of Blue Prism. I'll also be doing this from a personal email account registered on the Blue Prism portal, digital exchange, what have you, so you can see what that looks like if you're not a Blue Prism customer already, you're signing out for personal use, using your personal email, that's fine. Um, for a bit of background, there's always been a free trial ability to get into Blue Prism, but there wasn't a self-service option that you might see in many software vendors. And there's a couple reasons for that. First off is architecture. So from day one, Blue Prism was always designed with enterprise scale, particularly financial services deployments in mind. So the background around assuming everybody installing this is going to go through a full security, governance, architecture review and map that out was just kind of built into how the software was made. Also, Blue Prism is always writing back to a SQL database. So if you wanted to hand this software out to an individual to try out, they also had to learn how to install SQL. So that made things a little extra complicated. From a licensing perspective, a normal Blue Prism license only has two restrictions. It has an expiration date and a maximum concurrent number of runtimes, or a maximum number of digital workers, or VDIs if we're specifically looking at the architecture. There's nothing that caps the number of processes that can be published in a typical purchased license, and the licenses aren't restricted to a specific computer or server ID. This gives a lot of flexibility to enterprises that want to move around how they're using the software, how many dev environments are up, because those aren't charged for in Blue Prism, and move things around and have that flexibility. There's no call home in the software. There's no remote activation in the software. However, if you put that out in a trial community, learning edition, it becomes a bit of the Wild West with no ability to actually restrict how the software is being used, or how long it's being used for. So skip forward, in spring 2019, Blue Prism became available as a free cloud trial on Microsoft Azure. And this addressed both the architecture and licensing dilemma I mentioned, because everything was preloaded. If you're interested in going that route with a trial of Blue Prism to get hands-on with that, there's a great video that I will post to spin up the Azure Cloud trial. I'll post that down in the video description below. Next, jump forward. Let's fast forward to September of 2019, and Blue Prism released two new on-premise editions for self-service and personal education and trials. So these solve for architecture and licensing in a slightly different way. The trial and learning editions of Blue Prism have an installation wizard that's very different than the enterprise edition, the historical way that you would think about deploying Blue Prism, the historical platform. Um, the installation wizard assumes that you're going to be deploying on a local computer and don't need to go through 65 pages of documentation around enterprise variables, like architecture, security, that type of optioning. Um, the installer also deploys a local SQL database during the installation process, so you don't have to learn to install that, or just become a database admin on top of everything else. You can focus specifically on Blue Prism. The Trial and Learning Edition installers also include a few steps to register a license to the local database that's created during installation. And I'm about to show you how this works, because this is a series of steps that's specific to the Trial and Learning Editions that you wouldn't go through if you've previously installed the Enterprise Edition of Blue Prism. As a last topic before I show the actual installation itself, which works the same way in both the trial and learning editions, so this one video will cover both, I should probably cover the difference between those two options. First, the Blue Prism Trial and Learning Editions have the exact same functionality as the Enterprise Edition of Blue Prism. These are not feature-restricted community versions. It's all the same code base. Your primary difference is the installer. The Trial Edition license that's bundled or emailed to you is going to be shorter, but allows for more processes to be published at one time. So currently you can publish 15 processes with one digital worker, and that works for 30 days. If your needs for an evaluation are outside of that, just contact Blue Prism and they can give you access to a larger, bigger, longer license. Just have a conversation if you're doing that anyway. 'Cause there's probably some help that you'd like and support that you'd like on doing that. And then to flip over from the trial to the Learning Edition is longer from a license duration. It works for 90 days, but it allows for fewer processes to be published at the same time. Now, you can publish and unpublish processes all the time, so this isn't a big restriction, especially for individuals who are looking to learn Blue Prism, try it at home, educate yourselves, or build some kind of personal POCs. But it would be a potential restriction if you were trying to do some enterprise evaluation. I should also point out that the Learning Edition shows a duration of 90 days, and that's what the license is first issued as, but you can get new licenses to keep extending the duration. So don't worry about that just cutting off your access to Blue Prism 90 days after your first installation. Just request a new license and get that uploaded. So enough background. Let's actually get into the installation. So the first thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to have a login to one of the various different Blue Prism sites. So if you've already registered for the Blue Prism portal, the Blue Prism community site, Blue Prism University, or the Blue Prism Digital Exchange, those are all single sign-on. You'll have the login and credentials that you need. So head over to the Blue Prism Digital Exchange and either search for Learning, or you can click on this Our Software tab and get to a page that looks like this. If I follow the link here for the Learning Edition, that will take me over to the Learning Edition Digital Exchange asset. From there, I'll click Get Learning Edition. And if you've already logged in, you'll get a page that looks something like this. There's various different fields that are requested. The only one that's required is this phone number field. Doesn't hurt to make sure that you've updated your portal with the rest of the request fields, but fill that in, click Submit, and if you've done everything right, you'll get a page that looks like this. From there, there's a Blue Prism digital worker on the back end looking for these requests, spinning up every few minutes and processing those. Generally, it looks like it's sending out the license download emails every about 7 minutes or so. I'd probably give it about 15 minutes and then check back in your email box. If you don't see it within about 15 minutes with all the downloads that you need, make sure you check your junk mail because it might be flagged over on that as well. So the email that you'll receive looks something like this. Uh, you'll find your trial license. So let's make sure that we go and we download and we save that. Had one earlier named the same thing. So you'll save your license, and then we actually want to download the Blue Prism Learning Edition software. So this popped up on my other screen, so let me bring that in focus here. So I've already logged into the Blue Prism portal, and this is taking me over to the Learning Edition download page. Of course, you can do this in advance if you're waiting for that license to come through. If you go to the Blue Prism product Learning Edition tab here, let's download that and save it off. And I've already downloaded that earlier, but it only takes a second to download, so let's just overwrite it. Why not? Let's close that down, close the browsers down, and crack this thing open. So if we go through that, I have my introduction page, get started, read through the EULA, I agree to the license terms, and here's the installation. I always go through the advanced install because I like to see the other components that are installing. In here, we're getting the Outlook integration, Google Sheets integration, Chrome and Firefox extensions as well. And let's click install, and that's going to go through my installation. Do you want to accept that so it can move through? And it's going to want to close out Chrome, and it's going to install the browser plugins for both Chrome and Firefox. So Chrome, it'll wipe out, close it down, install the browser extension. Firefox is going to pop up on my screen if I remember right here, and the installation, the browser install will go in there, so we can automate against both of those browsers. Now I'm going to finish and launch Blue Prism. That brings up this Blue Prism 6.7 install, or a password page. For this, the default username is going to be admin. I then need to create a new password, and we want to remember this password because we're going to use this anytime that we log into the Blue Prism interactive client on your machine. Of course, you can change it over time, but we won't use this for a few more steps in the future, so make sure that you remember what that is. Save and continue. Now, I mentioned this installer for Blue Prism for the trial and learning editions will install SQL on your machine. So let's let it do that. We're going to install the database. That's going to create that for me. And then we're going to click Next again and log in and sign in using the Blue Prism credentials. Now, at this point, it needs a license file before it'll let me go any further into the interactive client. You'll see it's actually trying to log into the interactive client on the background. So for that, I need to give it the license file that we grabbed earlier. Now, this is where the installers also start to change. I mentioned SQL earlier. You also need to activate the license key. So for this, we need to generate an activation code. Click Next, copy code to clipboard. Click Next again. And again, kind of wizard pop through, it's going to open the Blue Prism portal for me again. And this is again where the different installations are a little different. I'm going to paste that activation code or that code that I copied into the clipboard into the Blue Prism portal. I've agreed to the Blue Prism software EULA, submit license activation. And this can only be done once per license. So this recording had to be done one time all the way through, so I apologize for any sort of stumbling. We're going to copy this to the clipboard. And from there, we can close the browser back down, click Enter your key, and paste from clipboard. Nice little tools back and forth to bounce through that. Click Next. It's approving this for my personal email address. And there we go. I can click Finish and log into Blue Prism. Now, the first time you go into Blue Prism version 6.7, at least the Learning and Trial editions, it'll give you a quick little intro to the various different components, your home page, the studio, the control room, and then finally it's going to reference the Blue Prism Digital Exchange where you can get all sorts of different add-on assets to extend the capabilities of Blue Prism. I would also recommend at the end of this, you click this Start Tour at Startup, other than if you don't, every single time you log into Blue Prism 6.7, it's going to pop this up on the screen and you're going to go through that same introduction. Click Get Started and you will notice quite a lot that's different as far as the UI around dashboarding in version 6.7 compared to previous version. The only other thing that I want to mention to you before we wrap this up is that if you're using this again for personal trial learning, which is what I assume most people would be using it for, you may not want to have to go through the process of setting up a separate virtual desktop for your digital worker to reside on. Generally, when you're looking at this for any production instance, you typically want the Blue Prism digital worker to work on a different machine, different Windows instance than you, so that you're not interacting and keying over each other and interfering with each other's systems. You also want to preserve a good audit trail. However, for education and learning purposes, that VDI setup may not be necessary. To do something very simply, you can click over to the Systems tab and scroll down to Settings. And if you click this little setting, start a personal runtime resource on this machine when the user signs into Blue Prism, is actually going to set up Blue Prism to share your desktop with you, for Digital Worker to share your desktop with you. So that way you can go through training, you can assign processes to a digital worker. Yes, it will hijack your machine when you tell it to start running processes, but again, that's okay from a learning edition standpoint without having to go through the VDI setup. So save that, or actually just click it and go to a different screen, and you're good to go. You're all set. We can see this license has been activated. I can install a new license in the future if necessary, if I need to extend this Learning Edition past that first 90 days. So again, appreciate you tuning in, watching. Hope this gives you everything you need to jump in and get going. From here, make sure to check out some of our videos and assets around installing training for Blue Prism. Go to the Blue Prism University site. Go to the Digital Exchange for basic training. Have fun and best of luck.